So today I'm making a video on the Freedom Par Tri 6. This is RBG light from Chauvet, and as you can see, the kickstand here is broken. There's a screw and a spring that somehow came out. So we're gonna start taking this apart, and you can see there's four main screws so that we can take off the bottom. Taking off those four larger screws and putting them aside. Popping out the screws, and then on the side there's two more screws that need to come out that hold the bottom. Now I just want to say I am not a technician. I don't work for Chauvet. It's just some lights that I bought several years back and finally had time to work on them. I could not find the screws locally. I went to Granger, Home Depot, all these other stores, and nobody had these particular screws and springs that I need. So I had to go to Chauvet and ask them if they can send some to me. Right here we can see that the bottom portion is removed. Those white little plugs that you see there with the red is just like some caulking or some type of glue so that the connectors don't come out. So what I originally did was just took a blade and just very carefully cut that red piece of plastic off, that red glue, and then as you can see there, just popping them out with my finger. They're not hard to mix up. There's four connectors in total. Once you start taking apart, you'll see that they're in different sizes. From here now, I'm going to take the that ground off. It's a 7mm nut driver, and I think I showed it to you right there. See if we could get focus. There you go, 7mm. So again, I'm not a technician. All of this stuff is just at your own risk, but to be honest, it's not hard to do. While taking off this nut, I may or may not show it, but there's a nut and there's also a small lock washer. You can take those screws and or that nut and the screw and the washer and just put it aside. And that's everything to take that bottom portion off. Now that center portion that we're going to take that off now, there's 3 plugs on the top. Putting the nut back on there just so I don't lose it. So those 2 plugs right there you pull out, and then there's one more on the other side. There you go. Same thing, and you need to take your knife and just cut that little red piece off so you can separate them. I thought about putting some music with this video, but then I'd be afraid that it'd be taken off for some reason, so I didn't put no music. And my apologies for the blank spaces of sound. So after you pull those plugs out, you flip it around upside down, and then there's 2 screws at the top, and then there's 2 screws right under that kickstand, which you'll see in just a moment. Now you lift up the kickstand, and there's the other 2 screws. Trying to get it focused there. So once you take those 4 screws off, that centerpiece is going to come out nice and easy. And now we're at the part where we can see the kickstand and where a screw. So right where I'm pointing, right there is where the screw and a spring should be, which is not anymore. I'm trying to focus it, but there you go. There's the spring and then the screw. I'll put a information on what is the model number for that screw and for that spring. So what I did here is I tried different ways to put that spring in, and the easiest way that I found out was to just take off that bottom bar. There's 2 screws there along with 2 washers, so I just popped those out, and then it was easier for me to get to that piece right there. I put that other piece under the light so that I can just tilt it, and that way the kickstand, the arms from the kickstand are not going through the bottom, and it'd be easier to work with. And there goes that arm there, which holds the kickstand. So you put the screw in. I had some little bit of gunk on there, so I took it off. But you put the screw in, and then you put the spring around the screw. And then there's a hole towards the bottom where you can just screw that. I gave it a couple of turns, and then I went ahead and I seated the that little piece of metal where it should go, and then I screwed the screw a little bit tighter. I didn't go all the way through there. There's no need to tighten it all the way down. Just as long as it's holding in the threads, and you can get that little pushback action like that right there, and you're good to go. So really, that's the only thing that's messed up on the kickstand. Now it's just the point of putting everything back together. So we're taking the 2 smaller screws with the small washer, and they don't have to be really tight, just kind of snug so that they don't come loose. There's the second one. Okay, there you go, nice and tight. And you can see the kickstand now is working pretty well. I really don't see how it is that that screw and the spring can pop out, but it did. I have 10 of those lights, and I had to do that to 4 of them. So putting it back together, it's the same thing as the reverse. Put that centerpiece in there, flip it over, and put those 4 screws back on. Now in my case, my battery was not bad on this unit, so I didn't bother going any further with the other piece and removing the battery. Maybe there's another video out there that may show how to remove the battery, but I did not do it. So once the 4 screws are on there, just make sure that I wouldn't tighten them all at the same time. I just put one or two snug so that way you can get all four in, and then go ahead and give them a little snug. Once those are snugged up, then you can flip it around and put those three wires back together with the connector. Actually, it looks like I'm going to. Okay, so the ground wire there, it has two nuts. Sometimes that gets loose, so I'm tightening it up so that the bolt for the ground there can just stay nice and tight. So here's the top piece, and this is the part that's a little bit difficult to do. The two pieces on the left, it's just an awkward position to get them in. I try to do the angle change there, the camera angle, so that you can see. You can't mess this up because it's not one is not going to go into the other hole. So it's just a point of trying to get those laying flat on the bottom and then sliding them in. But just make sure that when you do put them in, you can see that they're all the way in. You don't want them to be loose. Sorry, my hands are in the way there. But you can see here I'm trying to flatten it out and then try and push it in. So again, it's not hard. It's just the awkward position to get your hand in there. And even more awkward when you're trying to get the camera to show everyone how you got it done. So those two on the left are done. And as you can see, I pushed them all the way in. And now you got to do the same ones to the two on the right. So they're different sizes. You can't get them mixed up. These were easier to put in. There you go. Now we go ahead and take that ground wire. We already tightened the bolt that's on the base, so that's nice and snug. And then you put the ground wire around there. There's a lock washer that I'm putting in there, and then there's a nut with a plastic bushing inside. Switch back out to the 7mm, and all you need to do this is a Phillips and that 7mm. Looks like I did it twice there. Better view for you guys to see. Doesn't have to be super tight, just nice and snug. And once you get that in, now it's just a point of putting it up on the base, pushing the wires out of the way so everything can slide in. And put those two small screws in first. Again, everything just needs to be snug. We don't have to super tighten it. Now where the display is, there's also two screws there, but you don't need to remove those. I'm just now putting back the four main screws on the bottom. Sorry for the angle. So at no point of in this movie did I do any uh, fast speed. It does take around 15 minutes or so to do it. It'll probably take you longer to get the screws from Chauvet than it will to fix the light. And snug all four. And there you go. The kickstand is holding now. And just another view. Nice and tight. There you go. Thank you guys. Thank you for watching.